What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and break down why Tesla still looks very bullish and how the market may affect Tesla. I'm also going to break down why it's very likely for Tesla to continue pushing to the upside going into earnings, as lots of hype is being built up right now. I'm going to break down some important pieces of data, what's going on with the markets, and what you should be watching for this week as a Tesla investor. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, whether it's $1 or $100, it's up to you. You're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 1 week. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Tesla was up 4.91% for the day on Friday, looking pretty nice so far. And I do believe we have lots of momentum that's building up on our MACD, on our RSI, and other indicators. And I do believe that Tesla wants to continue with this push to the upside. But the NASDAQ, the QQQ, the SPY, they are telling a story that's actually increasing the odds of this happening. To start off, let's talk about this week, then I'm going to break down the charts. So for the week, we have earnings coming out, bigger earnings than last week's. We're going to start off with some big banks, maybe some medium-sized banks as well for Monday. Then we have Logitech during the after hours for Monday. Then on Tuesday, we have Verizon, Microsoft, Johnson Johnson, and other major companies like Capital One and so on. And then for Wednesday, we have Tesla after the market closes. That's going to be very, very big for the stock market as a whole. Also IBM and AT&T. This is going to be very, very important. I do believe there's lots of hype being built up going into this day, and we are very likely to see Tesla continuing to push because of this. For Thursday, we have Intel and Visa and many other companies. So specifically, Tuesday through Thursday are going to be the bigger days, and I really believe what we see will have some very, very big effects on how the whole market ends up moving. Now, I also want to note that for Thursday, we also have other important pieces of data. We have jobless claims data that's going to be coming out. That's going to be very important for the Fed's policies and what they end up doing. And it's going to give us more insights on the economy. And then on Friday, we have PCE data coming out. That's also very important. So the later part of this week, from Wednesday through Friday, is going to be even bigger. And I think the first 2 days may not be as huge of the week, but I do believe there could still be some upside. Now, I want to note something else that's important. That's the fact that on SPY, we made a very, very big move to the upside on Friday. That was mainly because of the options chain. There were so many puts that were being bought out there, and the market makers did not want to pay out those premiums, so they were incentivized to help push the market up. I did predict that SPY would get to 393. This would help Tesla get up as well. And not just that, but that would play a role. And what ended up happening is SPY ended up pushing and closing around 395, so even higher than I predicted. That was very interesting to see. 3 million puts ended up out of the money. That was crazy, crazy, crazy stuff to see. And we're not getting another day like this for many, many weeks to come, not until like mid-February. So we're probably not going to see the options chain affect the market to the same degree unless we see more and more options being bought in a short period of time. But until then, let's talk about the charts. What the heck is going on? I want to note that for SPY, okay, even though we do have a potential bearish divergence that actually formed right here, there is still room for us to continue pushing before we do see this thing downtrend. I'm still a bear for February to March, but I don't think that we're just going to start like crashing as soon as February starts. I do think the market will start slowing down relatively soon, but once we get like a little bit into February going into March, I do think it's very likely the market's going to see a big downturn based off the crash signals that I've been showing you guys. But until then, right before the big drops come, the big increase in volatility, which is why I do see the VIX pushing up very soon. Before any of that happens, there is room for upside in the market. The market's going to likely continue to push. We got some nice volume at the end of the day, and SPY looks like it's going to go for the resistance trend line right here, the blue line. I think we're going to try to test it again. This could help SPY hit 398 and maybe break a little bit above it as another like fake out rally. Sometimes this happens as a way to turn everyone bullish, and there are lots of traps because of this. Now, on the Nasdaq, on the 1 hour chart, I called out a potential head and shoulders that's being respected. I just want to note this. Wait, this is Netflix. Hold on. Where's my Nasdaq? So on the Nasdaq, I have this 1 hour chart. Uh, what you'll notice is we do have a very clear looking head and shoulders that's forming, but we didn't fully fill our gap all the way up here. So I do believe that the Nasdaq might continue to push up. We could actually push above the high that we saw previously. And I do believe the Nasdaq in the tech sector is likely to be a little bit stronger than SPY. So Nasdaq might push up a little bit more. This will likely be correlated with Tesla pushing up just a bit more. I mentioned to you guys that yes, we have this potential right shoulder being formed, but I don't think it's just going to lead us to crashing immediately. I mentioned that we'd probably chop for another week or so before we slowly start to downtrend, and maybe it gets more extreme going into February, maybe a little bit later. It may be very slow in the beginning and then start to become extreme by mid February to March. That's where it becomes very, very bearish. So it could be a little bit slower, but overall, I still believe in the same trend. I still believe it's very likely that this will play out. And as long as NASDAQ does not break this high up here, this head and shoulders like formation is still likely going to be valid. And I do believe it's going to end up playing out. Now, I also want to note on the QQQ, we have a very similar trend. This is heavily dictated by Tesla and Apple. I want to note that the QQQ had this gap up here. The gap is at 285-ish, around there, right? We actually failed to fill the gap as of recent. We peaked at 284, got a big rejection after the Fed speakers came out, and this thing rejected. But then we got a nice bounce off this 274 support I mentioned in a previous video, and then we started pushing. So it looks to me like the QQQ might keep going. It might get dragged up by Apple and Tesla, and we might see this thing go for that 285 gap fill before we get a big rejection, right? And what could like help this thing push up? The answer is maybe Tesla, maybe Apple play a big role. So I do believe the volatility index is going to see a big spike in the future thanks to the market potentially coming down later. But first, we might come down, maybe try to fill this gap down here. Then we get a big bounce later on. Going into February, I am very bullish on this. I do believe that implied volatility is going to start spiking. And until then, though, like I said, there's still likely some upside in this market. So I want to now talk about some news and some data before I break down what on earth is going on with Tesla, because you need more context. Right now, there are all these articles saying, oh, Tesla's cutting prices. They're starting a war that they're going to likely win, and there are other companies criticizing Tesla for it. I made a previous video where I mentioned the fact that technically Tesla did make a move that's helping them. They are actually getting more sales, and their inventories are still continuing to drop as I speak. So right here, I have the new Model Y inventory levels, and you'll notice that the inventory levels started dropping ever since Tesla announced the new price cuts, and they've been dropping and dropping and dropping. They came up couple of days ago, and as of right now, at the time I'm recording this, it actually dropped again, and they're coming down to these lower levels. That's a good sign for Tesla. Now, do I think this is going to last forever? Not necessarily. I do believe this might start to come up again because demand is still being shifted because of this economy, because of the higher rates and other factors. It's also because of consumer sentiment that's shifting big time in this economy. So this in turn is going to still affect Tesla, but as of right now, ever since the news about the price cuts, we haven't really seen inventory spike up too hard for the Model Y and most of their other models. So for the time being, things are okay, but they could shift later on. I just want to note that. Now, Tesla had pretty decent volume. It wasn't the best volume, but it was pretty decent at 138 million. On average, our volume is usually 186 million, but this was still okay because we are still getting some decent volume above 100 million, and we did push up on the higher volume, which is a good sign. This is significant because The price versus short volume percentage is showing the fact that it's at 52%. We are going to likely start to see this come down as we begin to see the short volume decrease, which I believe is very likely to happen. The people who are shorting Tesla very hard, many of them may start to get squeezed out of their positions, at least to some degree. But whether or not this continues after the 25th is going to depend on earnings. Tesla has been outperforming SPY and NASDAQ. If you look at the price pairs ratio, it's starting to get a really nice bounce, and I do believe this trend should continue as we approach earnings. Right over here, you can see Tesla is outperforming, and I want to see this thing continue with the momentum it is building. Right here, you can see it's online with the QQQ. It actually is doing a little bit better, so I'm hoping that continues. It looks like it most likely will. And right here, Piper Sandler is giving Tesla an overweight rating, meaning they believe it's going to outperform many projections. So it's very awesome to see. Mondays are historically green days 53% of the time for Tesla. But I want to note that, excuse me, sorry guys, when it comes to its overall price action, if you look at a green day in Tesla, we tend to be a little bit slow during the first like 30 minutes, first hour. Then we start to pick up after the second to third hour. Going into the later hours of the day, Tesla tends to pick up. So it kind of is a little bit slow typically. It does not like start exploding in the very beginning typically. And we tend to actually build more momentum as the day goes on. That's what's been happening over the last couple of days. It might actually continue on this trend. So in the very beginning of the day, if Tesla's a little bit slower than the overall market, do not panic, because Tesla is kind of like a sleeping giant that takes its time to really, really pump. The last thing is on the news, I didn't really see anything too big that came out as of recent. Please note that when I say things about Tesla and give you guys predictions, I can't always be 100% correct because I can't always predict the news. Sometimes unexpected things could happen. So as long as Tesla does not have any like major bad pieces of news, this thing could be on track to continue with the bullish move. And I believe that's very likely to happen as long as there's no major bad news, which I don't think is going to come. So we had a big spike in the short interest. This has been on a downtrend. So part of the reason why Tesla is pushing up is because shorts are covering their positions. And when they start to cover, they don't just start like covering and by buying back shares, but we also start to see puts being closed. That's why we're starting to see Tesla's options chain kind of shift. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. What's happening is the market makers and big institutions, they start closing puts when they start to see Tesla perform very, very well. And it leads to this chain reaction where they hedge by buying more shares. And that's the reason why when you look at the put to call ratios for the next few weeks, they've actually gone down and down and down. If you were watching the chart, you'd notice this. This means that there's been the calls are actually getting the edge. More people are getting into the calls and they're anticipating Tesla to push up a little bit better. So it's very interesting to see. Obviously, it does not guarantee anything, but it's a good thing that's worth noting. The last thing I'm going to talk about is Elon Musk. Just real quick, this person from a whole Mars catalog tweeted that they booked a doctor's appointment on their phone and it was automatically added to their calendar. They got in their Tesla and they saw it on their calendar and then it automatically set it as the destination. So it automatically took them to where they needed to be. Very intelligent car. And Elon Musk responded with a cool, I'm only calling this out because it's very rare to see Musk actually tweet about Tesla now. He tends to tweet a lot about politics and he has conversations with people and things like that. Uh, it's really his choice, but I just wanted to note that he still does talk about Tesla once in a while. So thank you, Elon Musk. We could also go on about other things, but it's okay. So, anyways, let's talk about Tesla. Tesla's looking pretty good. Nice momentum, but we are expecting a rising wedge like formation. And we know these tend to not always work out the best. If you are playing options, remember implied volatility is likely going up for Tesla. It's going to continue to go up going into earnings. There's no guarantee this thing will just explode to the upside after earnings. If it does end up coming down, watch out for that IV crush. Now, Tesla is currently up about almost 4.91%, maybe a little higher, going into the after hours. I believe this thing is going to continue to push. We got a nice inverse head and shoulders like formation that formed. This was actually confirmed recently, and this thing did continue to push. My prediction was Tesla would get to 131 at least, and we ended up going to 133. So it went a little bit higher than I projected. And I believe we're going to continue pushing to this zone right here. We have heavy resistance around this 136 area. I think Tesla could break above this. And remember, The QQQ and the NASDAQ are likely going to push to the green going into Monday and maybe Tuesday. It looks like that's what they want to do. And I think this will be correlated with Tesla pushing up as well. I want to note that on the 1 hour time frame, the 200 EMA happens to be just at this resistance. So I do believe Tesla might be heading for the 200 EMA. It's going to try to fight for this. And we might be even able to like break above it because we have a gap around this 137 area right above resistance. Right here, there's a really small gap right here around 137 point something. I think Tesla could break it and maybe try to fight for 140 this week. Now, going into earnings, I think that we are going to continue to respect this trend. So please, if you want on your charts, try to draw this out and be very cautious with how it moves. But from a technical standpoint, it looks pretty bullish. It looks more bullish than bearish just for the short term. Everything could though switch because of the earnings report, and that's why you still have to be very, very cautious. Now, as far as our MACD goes, we had some momentum right here that slowed us down, but it is flipping to the upside. It looks like it wants to keep going. On the daily, right here, we still have the MACD wide open on the daily chart, and it looks like it might continue with this momentum. That's a very good sign for Tesla. I want to see this thing continue to push. But one thing that's worth noting is we have gaps to the downside. There's one in the 120s, one in the 113-ish area. So there is a chance Tesla could come down in the future, right? Maybe the market drags down going to February to March, and that's the reason why Tesla could come down. Or maybe it might be after earnings. I don't know for sure, but it's just a risk you need to know. The RSI on the daily is only at 48.95, telling me that this thing has more room to continue going, and this trend is likely going to continue. Now, I do believe people are talking about a potential cup and handle like formation on Tesla. That's also very valid. It has not been invalidated as of right now. So there are lots of good signs that I'm liking, and the majority of indicators, in my opinion, are looking more bullish than bearish. We also have this nice formation right here, a continuation of this inverse head and shoulders, and a respect of this rising wedge. So I believe we're going to go for this test of the 200 EMA, hopefully by tomorrow. We might see Tesla push up to about this 136 level. I don't know for sure if we'll break it. If we do break this thing could fly to the 137 to 138 zone and then eventually get to 140 by the next day. So we could see this thing make some explosive moves. We know FOMO really likes to come into the stock. The hype is so big, people become very excited, and I do believe the excitement is about to come as people are excited for earnings. However, I must note there's no guarantee that Tesla will continue to pump after earnings because there's no telling what they're about to announce. That's why you have to be very careful. I'm hoping that they do announce something about a buyback, maybe a I don't know, $1 billion buyback. Who knows? But if they do that, that would be pretty decent news. I think this is a good chance for Tesla to try to keep their share price up. But there's only so much they could do if the market does end up coming down. And that's why you need to be very cautious. And even though I can't give you guys financial advice, I will say one thing, and that is there's nothing wrong with securing profits. Okay. I know that when you're trading, there are going to be lots of instances where you tell yourself, oh, if I just held on to my options instead of making $500, I could have made 2,000 or 5,000 today. Well, at the end of the day, you should not think that way. You have to remember profit is profit, green is green, even if you're only $100 or $500 up. Green is green, okay? We are humans, we all make mistakes. Do not be too mean to yourself when making moves. And just note the future of this company looks like it's in good hands. I'm still very, very bullish. So, as far as my longer term projections go, just so you guys know, it's going to depend on earnings. I do believe Tesla has upside approaching earnings, but if this thing does end up coming down, whether it's because of the market coming down, which could easily happen going into February and March, if Tesla comes down, I want to note that it's not the end of the world. I'm still very excited to buy the dips on this stock. I think it's a very strong company. And the list goes on about why this company is so amazing. It's not just because of Elon Musk. We have full self-driving technology, we have AIs, we have robotics, we have full self-driving cars, we have robotaxi, we have all the different models. We also have the Cybertruck coming out. And I believe once the Cybertruck is out, we might even start to see the share price improve a lot more from there. Even if this thing makes a big move to the downside later on, it's okay because Cybertruck is coming, the Roadster is coming. These could be very bullish catalysts, not just for the long term, but also for this year. Later on, by the second half of this year, I do think things could improve big time. So, anyways, thank you all for listening. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and get ready for tomorrow. Tesla to the moon because the long term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.